Welcome to the Faith in the Family podcast, brought to you by Care for the Family. In this episode, Rob Parsons helps parents to understand some of the different stages of faith that a child may go through as their personal faith develops.
You know, as parents, we desperately want our children to follow Jesus. We want them to love God. But we can't drag them into faith. They have to find that for themselves. And it's been suggested there are 4 stages of faith. Stage number 1 is experienced faith. This is when they're very small, perhaps 2, 3, 4, 5 years old. And here everything goes in, everything matters. The problem is not that they're not listening to us, it's that not a word is lost. The way we deal with that naughty child in the Sunday school class, little prayers we say with them, the songs we sing with them, it's all going in. Everything matters. And you know the fascinating thing? What children are taught at this stage will often affect their theology for the whole of their lives. I meet men and women and they're my age, but they find it really hard to believe that actually God loves them. Because when they were little, somebody told them about a God who only loved you if you did this, or if you achieved, if you prayed for an hour a day. And as men and women, they find it hard to grasp that love. Experienced faith is very, very important. And the next stage is affiliative faith. And this can be pretty scary for parents and sometimes youth leaders as well, because here the power of the peer group comes into operation. You know, if you have little ones, they're 4, 5, 6 years old, take every opportunity you can to pour what you believe into their lives. Because right now they think you're brighter than Einstein and holier than the vicar. But the day is coming down the tracks when they're going to think you are the stupidest person on the face of the earth. You ask me, when does that day occur? I can tell you the exact moment. It is the day of their 13th birthday. And suddenly, Kylie Harrison, age 14, will be the epitome of all wisdom. They would do anything to please a Kylie. And the power of the peer group comes into operation. And parents are not completely helpless, but we do look back at the moment and watch. And it's then we hope that we've put enough into their lives to see them through. And you know, at this stage of their lives, the sense of being with a group is very important. And I would suggest that you find a church with a good youth group for your child. If your church doesn't have one, let them go to a youth group in another church. Let them experience lots of young people together. It could be Keswick, it could be New Wine, it could be Spring Harvest or Soul Survivor, but give them that experience of affiliative faith. The youth leader may be very important. Incidentally, do you know why we as parents give church youth leaders a hard time? Because we want them to do in one night a week what we have not managed to do in 16 years. Work with the youth leader, work with the junior church leaders. Let's help get them through in that affiliative time. And you know, while I'm talking about it, it's not a bad thing at this stage of their lives, so long as we trust them, for other adults to come into their lives and influence them. It takes a community to raise a child. It could be a sports coach, it could be a youth leader, a mentor in some way. But sometimes they will help take our kids on into faith and into life in mid and late teens and help us in that task. So experienced faith is the first stage, then affiliative faith, and then a stage that's very, very hard for us as parents, searching faith. Our children suddenly begin to question or even doubt things that 5 or 6 years ago they believed with certainty. You know, sometimes when our kids come to us and they've got questions about faith, it's very hard to know exactly how to deal with them. But it's not a bad stage. First of all, listen to what they say. Listen to their questions. Don't put them down. Don't say, well, you must believe. You're wrong. You're a bad Christian for even having questions about that. Listen to their questions, whatever they are. And secondly, tell them what you know. If you've got some answers, if we've got some answers, let them know those answers. We've been on the road longer than them. But thirdly, don't be afraid to let them know when we don't have answers. None of us can have answers to everything to do with God. Allow them to live with a little uncertainty sometimes. Perhaps we'll say to them, as I said to my kids some years ago, darling, I got loads of doubts, but God's answered so many of my questions, I'm happy to trust him for the rest. don't be afraid to tell them what you don't know. And tell them how you live with that day by day. You know, the opposite of faith is not doubt. Sometimes the opposite of faith is certainty. Think we always have to have everything sewn up. Allow them to search. And then finally, experienced faith, affiliative faith, searching faith, and owned faith. I have 5 grandchildren. I like being a grandparent. If I'd known grandkids were so much fun, I'd have had them first. But God has no grandchildren. Let me say that again. God has no grandchildren. Everyone who comes into relationship with him must do so directly. And we find that as hard as parents. We love them so much. We want to drag them into the kingdom, but we can't. We have to sow good things into their lives. We have to pray for them. We have to be there for them. But ultimately, we must leave them to God. This is between them and him. 4 stages. Experienced faith, affiliative faith, searching faith, and owned faith. And sometimes that last stage can be agony. I love the story Jesus tells of the boy who broke his father's heart. He turned his back on everything his father had ever believed in and walked away. But one day he came home to himself and he thought, I want to go home. And he makes up a little speech. Father, I want to come home, but I'm no more worthy to be called your son. Make me just like one of the servants. If it doesn't work out, kick me out after a day's notice. And as he walks home, he's reciting his speech. What he doesn't know is every day since he left, the father's been looking down the road for his boy. And when he sees him in the distance, he starts to run, and the father runs and he puts his arms around the boy, and the boy begins his speech. Father, I've sinned against heaven and against you. But he never finishes his speech. Because the father's saying, no, put a robe on his back and a ring on his finger and shoes on his feet. My boy's home. My girl's home. God understands the heart of that father, that mother.
You have been listening to the Faith in the Family podcast. For further information about our courses, resources and events, visit us at careforthefamily.org.uk.